Yay, it worked. All right. Kia ora koutou. We are here for another book club. We're here to talk about junior texts today. And so we have 4 kayako, 3 of whom are lovely and 1 of whom is me, talking about some gorgeous, amazing junior texts that we're excited to tell you about. So you can think about if you want to teach them at your kura. So we'll just introduce ourselves and then we can start talking about our books. So kia ora, ko Caitlin Funk Toku Ingoa. My name's Caitlin and I teach at Selwyn College. Sandra?
Hi there, I'm Sandra Gillies. I teach at Mount Maunganui College.
Kia ora. Melanie?
Kia ora, I'm Melanie Van Ansem and I teach at Glendowie College.
And Susie?
Kia ora, ko Susie Carrier Toku Ingoa, and I teach at Dawson School for Girls.
Awesome. Thank you. It's nice to have you all here. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate all of your expertise. So I guess, Melanie, how do you feel about starting us off tonight?
I can start if you'd like me to.
I would love you to. Thank you.
Okay, so I read the novel Glimpse by Jane Higgins. A few years ago, I guess it was a while ago now. It feels like a few years ago, but I feel like that just disappears quickly. She wrote The Bridge and a follow-up novel. This is a standalone. And as I was reading it, I was thinking sort of in my head, year 9 felt like a good fit. You could probably go up or down in a year, although it does say, I think, on the teaching notes that are available online, that sort of suggests 14 plus, but I didn't think there was anything in there that would be a problem for a year 8 student. It certainly has a sort of, it starts off maybe a little slow, but definitely towards the ending it picks up, which was really good because it meant I got through the end really, really fast as I was on the edge of my seat of what was going to happen. So in this novel, it's sort of inspired by the Christchurch earthquakes and the aftermath of that. So this is sort of a post-apocalyptic dystopia where the earthquakes started 7 years ago and sort of widespread death and injury, and there's the D zone, which is the demolition zone, which I guess is kind of like the red zone of not being rebuilt. And in the same area, there are all the people who are without citizenship papers, the illegals, tend to congregate there because where else do they go? So on top of being in this sort of set in this D zone that's it's got its own night market and its own sort of social dynamics with gangs and things, there's also sort of a corrupt corporation. There is a cult. There is a task force designed to kind of clear out the illegals. So there's a lot of things going on that you can sort of delve into. But our main character is Jonah, and he has grown up with his cousin Baz, which I think is supposed to be short for Sebastian. And Jonah is someone who can glimpse the quakes that are coming up. So it's like a warning system. So some of the people are privileged to have this insight into when quakes are coming. And we understand that sort of this is how people have been dealing with the ongoing quakes, is sort of they've set up these warning systems using that. And as we find out, things are changing during the book, and this corrupt corporation is after sort of controlling this these glimpses, who can therefore provide this warning system. So there's a lot of sort of behind the scenes politics going on, and you do get into the viewpoint of a few different characters who are involved in those areas so that you kind of can see what's actually happening. So there's sort of some really rich stuff to discuss that's beyond just sort of the trauma of dealing with that kind of situation. Baz has lost really close family, and he's really struggling with that. And so we can talk about how cults might prey on vulnerable people. And Jonah himself, his dad has had to go work in another city, and his mum has suffered a sort of life-altering injury and is pretty much unresponsive. So it's sort of just dealing with how do you survive when everything around you is falling apart, but also how do you survive when you know people are doing the wrong thing. What do you do to try and stop that? How can you sort of stand up for yourself, stand up for others? So it was a really good story, and I thought, the ending, like I said, lots of sort of on your seat, what's going to happen, everything's sort of coming to a head, and you definitely feel like you're racing towards the finish. There's definitely a sort of a countdown element going on, and I think students would really enjoy it. It's not too thick. So it's coming in at, what was it? It's 295 pages, but text is pretty sizable, decent margins and things. So it was quite easy to read, and the chapters felt quite pacey as well. So yeah, I definitely would recommend teaching that. Year 9, possibly 8 or 10. I definitely think there's enough content in there for 10, and there are like some moments of really lovely language as well that you could, grapple with too.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I would have put it at year 10.
You think year 10? Yeah. I'm not a year 8 teacher, so it's that's my hesitation around recommending it there. But in terms of sort of, there wasn't anything like, there is a romance, but it's very light. There's the odd kiss on the forehead. It's barely there. And I suppose the trauma element of dealing with grief is definitely.
Yeah, I think that's why I would have put it slightly older, because of the trauma around it, and also some of the sort of, you could go into it, get some crunchy ideas around that whole idea of sort of manipulation, the way we are pushed into doing things for governments or for groups who are in control, that sort of stuff. I think you could engage with really well.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thanks, Melanie. Sandra, do you want to tell us about your book?
Yeah, sure. I read Stepping Up by David Hill, which David Hill's been around forever. I actually don't know how old he is, but he must be in his 70s, I think. But I remember him, he's written lots of books for school age kids with, with Kiwi kids in mind, and kind of high interest, topical, semi-historical fiction stuff at times. This one is about a 14-year-old boy who goes tramping with his father on a mountain and has an accident and ends up with, it's not a spoiler because it happens in the first chapter, amputating his leg sort of from below the knee down. And after, when he gets he gets airlifted out, and that's kind of what happens. So the whole kind of story is around that, what happens to him and how he deals with it, and all the kind of setbacks of going back to school. He takes you through the journey of getting a prosthesis and how profoundly your life has changed by losing a limb. It's a really linear story, so I found it like it would appeal to some kids, but I wouldn't teach it as a class novel. I think I would put it in, I love a mixed set of kind of 6 books to teach to juniors, where you can go to the boys that are outdoor kind of boys. He's a really regular kind of teen with an ordinary family, and it goes to an ordinary school with, it is just regular people living their life and then dealing with a really unfortunate incident, and how that how his friends react to him is quite interesting, and learns to deal with that. So I think there's a huge amount of lessons in there for people who are dealing with, again, some form of trauma or some profound change in their life. It's not plot driven. So yeah, I that's why I kind of felt like it would suit kids who want a really easy to follow story. There's enough there to keep you going, but yeah, it's not something that that I would go to a whole class, but I think it would definitely have a solid place in a mixed set of books, where you could, certainly really accessible for year 9 or 10.
Nice.
Again, big text, short chapters. They know who it's aimed at in that respect. So
I love that. What about a year 8 or year 7 class, maybe?
Yeah, it could go into a year 8. There's how many pages are we up to on this one? 265. It's definitely a chapter book that a young enthusiastic reader would see it and think, this is a decent sized book for me to read and get through it. So yeah, 8 or 9. And I was thinking in a mixed set just for kids who are possibly a bit more reluctant readers. I think if you've possibly taught in the past, See You Simon, or it's kind of a bit of a revamp of that, I guess, in a way, dealing with difference. So yeah, it would be a good one to have on hand.
Awesome. Thank you. Susie, you want to tell us about your book?
Okay, well, I'm talking about The Spark Hunter by Sonja Wilson, which when I went to get it off my shelf, discovered I must have given away to somebody. So I've got the sequel here, which is The Secret Green, which is the second book, which is also fantastic. So The Spark Hunter I teach at year 8, but it could equally be taught at year 9, I think. It's about a young girl who is... she growing up in Southland and frequently goes tramping with her family in Fiordland, and is given huge grief by her hunting father and brother because she won't hunt and she won't kill animals, and she believes in fairies because she keeps seeing their lights. So then she goes on a school trip into a remote part of Fiordland, and gets lost from the school trip and is rescued by the Sparks, who are the essence of all the native fauna of Fiordland. So they shrink her down to their size, and she learns all about how important each of their species are and how some of them are dying out. And then she comes back and she has to rescue certain birds. So she has to take the Spark to where they are on a sanctuary, and sort of, and it's a fun adventure story, you know, with fairies and well, sparks. They're not fairies, and some of them are pretty crotchety, and you know that all the Sparks all have real characters, and that's what I really love about them. They're not just sort of images or sort of cardboard things. But sort of, so when I teach it, obviously there's huge room for doing some contextual research around the environmental issues that it brings up. But it's sort of, it's a 12-year-old out to save the world, which is always goes down well with 8s and 9s. And it's a relatively easy read, but there's lots to get into it in terms of, and it's not just all straightforward. She's got to make some really hard decisions. And there's the whole thing about staying true to what she believes in when she's being laughed at. And of course, nobody believes her about what's happened when she tries to talk about it. But then she actually discovers that other people have experienced this. And so there's sort of that other people who haven't been brave enough to tell their stories. And so that sort of sense of solidarity, and that, you know, the older people have just been afraid that people would think they're crazy and stopped talking about it. But she, as a child, is able to speak out and say, this is real and this is important. So there's a whole lot of stuff about telling your story and speaking your experience, as well as the environmental stuff.
Yeah, it feels very like the Porangi Boy.
Yes. Yes and no. I mean, I also teach the Porangi Boy at year 8. But I think the Porangi Boy is sort of, I guess that's more about human relationships. I mean, it is about the taniwha in terms of the sacredness of the land and how that is sort of experienced. But the Spark Hunter is much more about the human impact on nature in terms of the effect on the native fauna in particular.
That sounds cool.
So yeah, I guess there are connections, but it's sort of, I see that in a slightly different approach.
Yeah, fair. What year would you say did you?
I teach it at year 8, but I could see it working just as well at year 9.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I have 2 books because I started reading this one. I know, right? Classic. I started reading this one here, Dragon Fall, and it's a series. The reason why I picked this one up is because it's dyslexic friendly, and it's the font is Oh goodness, why have I done this to myself? The font is quite easy to read. But the other cool thing about it, which like who doesn't love a bit of pictures? There are like these beautiful little illustrations all over the book. Some of them are a full page, especially when they're making sure that you understand the different characters or the different species, I guess you could say, in the book. I really liked this. I thought it was very fun and sweet. I just feel like it's a little bit more of a not a class text, kind of like what you were saying, Sandra. Maybe not as much of a text for an entire class if you're teaching year 8 or 9, maybe down to 7. Could be really cool if you were doing a whole class text, but I think having a set of these around would be phenomenal, especially seeing as it's a series. I'm sure, Susie, seeing as your book is a series as well, you understand when you hand the kid the first book and they like it, and then you're like, yes, I've got you for at least 3 more books. Always a good feeling. But what I'm going to do is I'll talk through Migration. I read this one a little while ago. So Migration by Steph Matuku. This book is about, centers around Farah. She is from a Ngāti, so a tribe that is very wealthy, and normally her people don't need to send anyone to the army camp to be trained up. But she really has been dreaming about going. And by dreaming, I mean like it's like a calling. She feels very called to go and to be a part of the Western Wananga, where all the military fighters are trained up. And so she decides to go. And while she's on her way, she sees a boy on the train and she thinks that he's stealing, but it turns out he is actually the one that took it from the thief and was trying to give it back. And so she immediately pegs him as a bad dude. And it turns out he's from a lower Ngāti, and so he's his name is Lase, Lase. So I think Lase, and they both just do not get along, and then of course they get partnered up. And it was a really cool book about Farah starting to understand how she fits into the world. She was very privileged in her Ngāti, and so now she's starting to understand how other people live and other people's privileges, what other people care about. So in the world that we're in, which is a very much a sci-fi, a sci-fi world, you can see that she is starting to see that just different Ngāti grow different things or produce different things, so they have different values and they place importance on different things. And so she's starting to kind of have to negotiate how that works with the different people that have been collected at the Wananga in order to be able to be trained. And then she starts to learn a lot more about the history, and especially the secret history of the world that she's in. And it was such a thrilling story. I really got engaged. I really loved the characterization. You get to know a few of them. So she has a really loud, sassy roommate that I really enjoyed. And yeah, I just found the entire story really thrilling, with so much depth to it that I think a year 10 class could have a lot of fun. I could see this working well in a year 9 class if you know the kids well. But I think just starting off, if I could see most year 10 classes having a great time with this book. Has anyone else read this one?
No, I haven't read it, but I think we've already got a set at school. I think Melissa's teaching it.
Yeah, I think she is.
Yeah, does it have kind of Hunger Games vibes in a way?
Yeah, it does. It very much is. Like they aren't selected to be sacrificed, but there's lots of battles and fighting and survival, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Kind of
if anyone's read,
kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. With like these different people grow different things or create different things for the betterment of all. Yeah, it's a bit of a bigger one as well, so that's another reason why I think depending on the time that you have, it could be a really cool story. Just under 400 pages, 375, 380. A couple of pages of like really interesting just images that you kind of are like, what is the purpose of that? But as you keep reading, you kind of start to understand a bit more. But yeah, I think you could look at the importance of friendships and stories like this, the importance of understanding your own history, how like the loss of innocence when you start to realize things about yourself and your own people that maybe you didn't realize earlier, that kind of thing. So that's why another reason why I think year 10 is a good year for it. That's when they start to really understand or be really interested in what is fair, what is right, who am I? How do I fit in to this world? And I think it'd be a cool one to teach. Please enjoy my cat being silly behind me if you can hear all that fun noise.
How do you think if the kids are slightly more in the struggling reader space, is there enough to try and get them through?
Yeah, I think with a book like this, because of the action in it, like there's even there's a bit of a romance, not between them, but between him and someone else who's her enemy. And then because they get partnered up, that girl gets really jealous of her. And so like there's that element that I think some of the kids will be like, oh, that's really relatable, or that's so interesting. And they'll start to have opinions about it. Like she should calm her farm, or like she should just totally like get mad at her, go beat her up, that kind of thing. I could totally see. There are moments where the other characters are like, you should stand up for yourself. And she's like, no, this isn't my fight to, but then there's also so much action. And I think for some of the students that will enjoy there's a nice thread of that, like personal history, secret history that they'll start to notice, and then they'll start following that along. So I think for also those high-end those readers that are maybe a little bit above the average in the class, they'll also find some ways to enjoy it as well.
Cool.
So I think it has a lot to offer. Yeah. And also seeing as she's a Read NZ writer, you can always have her come into school, which is always a win.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, well, I appreciate all of your time today. Thank you so much for reading the book and letting us know what you think. And we'll be back with another book club, I'm sure. Thanks, everyone.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it. And I've ended the recording this time. Stop recording. I did it.